again. Welcome to the King's Table. This is Dr. Kathy James, fondly known as Mama James, along with Coach Kimmy Young. And at the table we have Coach Crystal Cyprian and Coach Yvette Bugs. We're here tonight with an amazing topic. We are all experiencing changes all around us every single day. And of course, we are just like you. We are wondering what's next. So tonight we're going to talk about learning to embrace the change. We're going to have some great conversation, provide some tools and resources that we can all use to walk us through each and every step. But more importantly, God is not surprised by the changes. He knows exactly what's ahead of us, and He has already prepared a way for our escape. So join us at the King's Table for this conversation as together we learn how to embrace the change. Everyone to the King's Table. I want to bring in all of our coaches on tonight. I did something a little different there, but welcome everyone. How you doing?
Hello.
Everyone doing okay?
Yes.
Well, we're glad you're here tonight. How about your weekend? Crystal, did you have a good weekend?
I had a great weekend for me. Yes, I truly enjoyed myself.
What was the most eventful thing that you did this weekend?
Well, many of you all know I ride a motorcycle. His name is Sir Knight. Well, Sir Knight got a partner this weekend. So now we have Cherry Red. So my husband is now an official biker. So we plan to hit the road and just go and let the wind blow in our hair. We're excited.
I'm excited. I did write on the post. I guess I'm willing to let go and trust you in this process. Miss Kimmy, how was your weekend?
My weekend was really good. Spent the time just getting the yard back together. So here in Northern California, we had a lot of fires, and that really affected those. And it's like 40 miles away, so I could only imagine the effect that it had on those that are in those areas. But even for us, 40, 50 miles away, we had a lot of ash and just a lot of things around in our yard. So just taking the time to clean up and get that together, and just keeping in mind those that are affected by the wildfires here in California.
Great. Well, we're glad that everything's fine for you. And the chickens are all surviving?
They're all well. And trying to pump up that turkey. It's close to November, so I think we...
So glad I don't eat meat. So glad I don't want that turkey. So Yvette, how was your weekend? We've missed you for the last couple of weeks. We're glad everything is well with your family.
Thank you. I missed you all. Everything is good. I have a lot of catching up to do. Been traveling, getting my son settled in New Orleans, only to think he was going to have to evacuate last week. So he made it through, and spent some time with my husband and my father, my sisters, just taking care of some, much needed business with my elderly father, and just enjoying each other.
Great. Well, I'm glad. So we're all back together tonight to have a great conversation around change. And I don't know about the rest of you, but when I think of change, I'm always wondering, okay, what's next? What's going to fall out of the hat, or what rabbit you're going to pull out of the hat? But we're going to talk about that tonight. And we're going to provide some wonderful resources and some conversation to those that are listening. So thank you to all of you that are joining. So we have several watch parties going, and it looks like I just froze on the screen. I don't know if you all can notice that or not, but we want to say to all of you, we want...
All right. So hold on. So we're going to let your internet catch up here.
Go right ahead.
You are coming in and out of the screen. So give it a minute to see if we can get you rebooted. All right. So there you go.
There we go. I don't know what happened there, but we just froze again. Go right ahead, Kimmy.
Nope. All right. So she's having some technical difficulties. Can you hear us? That's really weird, right? So this is perfect for this segment because when you talk about change, and we'll talk about this adaptability. Thank goodness, adaptability is one of my top strengths, and I do it well. We're going to allow for Dr. James to get her stuff situated. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it on today, where we talk about change. And what does change look like? Dr. James, are you back in? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine. So I'm back on the screen. So I'll go ahead. And if I lose it, I love what Kimmy just said, adaptability. You have to be very flexible if you're going to use technology because it just does what it wants to do. So thank you. And if I happen to go out, these ladies are amazing. They're very smart. They're well educated. They're saved. They love Jesus. They know just what to do. So please just carry on, ladies. All right. But and talking about change tonight, what I wanted to share with everyone is we've got to have an open heart and a willingness to just say, God, whatever you want to do in my life, I'm open to that change. Let me share this scripture with you. And it's in Isaiah 43. One of you be ready with that scripture just in case I go out. But Isaiah 43:19 says, behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I will even make a road in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. God wants to do a new thing in us. We don't get to tell him how to do it, when to do it, or where to do it. But God said that he would make a way, a road in the wilderness. So tonight we're going to be talking about how to embrace that change in our lives. And remember, we're coming from the book of Esther. Everything I want to talk about and base everything that I do is on the book of Esther. So I want people to know that Esther had many changes that she had to deal with in her life, many changes. And I keep repeating over and over because I want you all to read everything you can about Esther and all the various things that she had to go through. Her parents died, so she was abandoned. She was adopted, and then she was kidnapped. She was put into a harem. Then she was made take a bath for a year, not a night, but a year. Then she was dressed and presented to an unknown man, and she was selected to be the queen. Then she was challenged with, if you don't speak up to save your people, they're all going to die. You talking about change, ladies? That is phenomenal to me when we look at Esther's life and the impact that she did to save an entire nation. So we're going to just talk about tonight is how we cope with change. None of us are immune to change. Yvette, Crystal, and Kimmy, let's talk with you all for just a few moments. With everything going on around us today with COVID, job loss, working from home, teaching our kids at home, and I'm now teaching from home, my God help. How have you managed your everyday lives? Yvette, share with us, and then Crystal and Kimmy, real quick. How are you impacted by the change, and how are you managing it?
Impacted by the change a lot. I do work in an elementary school, and that has changed drastically for everyone, the students, the teachers, the parents. And I've had to learn how in this season, even dealing with my elderly dad, my mom passed in last year, and you have to learn how to pivot. That is a word that we are using now when it comes to changing and being flexible, is to pivot. And I remember I used to dance when I was a young girl, and there was a move, and it's a pivot, and you literally just change course. And so that's what I've learned in this season, and it's not always easy. Your body has to be a certain way as a dancer before you pivot, or you can, turn the wrong way, hurt yourself. So even in this situation and this change, we have to learn how to properly pivot.
That's really good. Thank you. Kimmy, how has change been impacting you?
So change for me with COVID-19 was really big. It looked like coming from a workforce, being a manager and going into work every day and managing people, and then now I'm at home managing little people. So my goal for the day is just keep the little people alive.
Pivot.
That is really the goal. Right? It's just keep the little people alive for the day. And so for me, I had to change, I'm a night owl. And so I'm giving myself still permission to be up late at night, but not wanting to get up early in the morning. So I'm having to change that to say, you still have to make sure that you go to bed at a decent hour, wake up at a good hour to make sure that they're ready and that they're set for school. Changed look like being home all day and still making sure I got up throughout my day. Simple things like changing my desk setup. So those are different changes, but some positive changes that I saw was being an influence 100% on my kids. So if I ever wanted an opportunity to teach them Christian material all day, every day, and get more biblical time in, this would be now, right? Those are the changes. Teaching them how to garden, teach them how to cook. There's no excuse out of any point right now that I can't say I can't teach them something because I don't have the time. So I can make the time, I can change the way I used to do things to now being having a positive change. So not seeing it negatively, like I'm just home and I'm with these kids. I'm home and I'm with these kids. It's all about how you say it.
I love that. That's great. That walks us right into what we're going to be talking about tonight. Crystal, how have you been embracing this change?
Well, change for me has been rapidly, I can't say change, rapidly changing, but literally rapidly changing. With being in healthcare, we would make one process, and then 5 minutes later, the process has changed. New CDC guidelines have come out. Oh, this is the proper way that we need to do something. So we developed a word, like Yvette said, pivot. We developed a word called fluid. We are all going to be fluid in this environment. We're going to be fluid so that we can be flexible, so that we will not get bent out of shape. So that's how we've been handling change. There's so much that's changing with technology. It's like, oh, we're preparing for the surge. They're going to have all of these patients that are going to be COVID positive. We didn't know what was going to happen. Would we be like New York? So we were building 50% of capacity at every hospital in Sacramento, putting beds in any particular place that we could, just in case. So the change for us has been on alert, very high, preparing for just in case. So preparing for the worst case scenario. And then once you think you're prepared and you got everything in order, guess what? We need to add one more thing. So we had to be very, very fluid in a very unknown climate. Yeah. And that has been the reason why we have to be flexible so we won't get bent out of shape.
Right. And I know that each one of us talked about a different area of our lives for change. And I know for me, it's been challenging because I'm not in the workforce right now because I've had some illnesses. So I've had to learn to adapt to that. I want to get up every day and go out and run, bike, swim, kayak, and all these different things. And everywhere I go, I'm being told I got to wear a mask. I can't go into the restaurant and get my favorite meal unless now I want to eat it outside, or just so many things are happening. And last week I had a major change. I opted to start homeschooling a couple of my grandkids. That's a change that I'm saying, Lord, I don't even know. The baby brought home a math assignment that said deconstruct 20. And I got the dictionary out and I said, I know what deconstructs mean, but how do you do it with the 20? Just tell me you want to define by the 20. Just tell me that. So those types of changes bring mental stress. So we have to be flexible so that we can make sure that we not only learn the process, but we teach the process to other people. And ladies, it is true that other people are watching us and they're looking for how we react, how resilient we are going through all the different challenges that we're facing. So we're going to face all changes in all different ways in our marriages, with our children, on our jobs, in our grocery, in our neighborhood. Some of my neighbors are so afraid. I thought they used to pull their car in all the time and close the garage, but now I know they are, because before they open up their garage, they're looking around to make sure no one's in their environment before they pull in that could accidentally walk up on them. So everybody is really stressed out and a lot of tension right now. So change can come in many forms. It can affect our lives in so many different ways. So we're going to spend some time on some tips. We're going to give you some tips and ideas and suggestions that you can consider when coping with change. So Crystal, I'm a firm believer, and you're going to have to convince me otherwise. I believe that if we live a more balanced life, getting proper rest and sleep and eat good and in the Bible, and let's keep God at the forefront of our conversation, that change is easy to manage by being balanced. What are your thoughts around that?
I think when we're in the middle of change, balance is possibly just an illusion. because, and I know that may be unsettling for some people, but when you're going through major changes, and this is good and bad changes. It can be good like graduation. How about a wedding? Um, you want to have some sense of control of everything that's happening. That's how a bridezilla is born, in the middle of all of that stress. Right? So it's illusion of what control you can have. And we try to put a word balance to that. But when you're right in the middle of it, in the thicket of it, sometimes it's not really balance that you're seeking. You're trying to make sure that you're just surviving and thriving and able to handle it. So there are some good tips. And I know we're going to go down tips a little bit later. But if you're talking about balance, I really feel and I believe that balance is just an illusion, because sometimes you can't have all of that control that you think you need in the midst of that situation.
Okay, so when we look at your concept of it, or your perspective, excuse me, of the illusion, how do you see people managing stress in the midst of all of that illusion that's happening around them when they can't get their balance?
Yeah, so you can manage certain, because you have to manage yourself, right? That's where it starts with. First, you have to acknowledge. I'm going to acknowledge that things are changing around me, because a lot of times you want to grasp for control when you're trying to seek this balance out. But there's some things that are beyond your control, and things that even in your best plans that you have made, something will happen. How about I just go back to the beginning of this, you know, podcast. You have laid out, you have prepared everything. You've been technically ready. You were prepared and here ready and half an hour before it even happened. It was beyond your control, the internet.
True.
So what do? How do you balance that? You manage it, and you manage yourself. And you manage yourself by like, hey, it's technology. These ladies are going to handle it. I acknowledge that there's a problem. I see that. I'm going to manage myself. And then guess what? We're going to get through this.
That is true.
It's as simple as that.
I want to talk open all of you right now to jump in on this part of it. This was not in my thoughts, but you just made this come up. And that is, why is it that women walk around in denial? Things are happening and you see it happening, and people try and knock on your door and tell you what's happening. But we say, oh, no, it's not happening. Where does that come from, Yvette?
I just think that some of us are just raised or taught to just, press through these things and not acknowledge them or not talk about them. It's not a good thing. Not saying that that's a good thing, but I just think that's where a lot of us are. It's just something that, we just, you ever hear people say, just power through it. You can do it. Just power through it. It don't matter whether you're sick, you're frustrated, you're depressed. You can power through it. You can do it. You're not weak. And sometimes we need to take a step back and take a minute for ourselves and regroup.
Yeah, I like that. So I remember the movie Fences. You guys remember that movie Fences, where the lady finally came home he finally came home, brought the baby home, and all this time she knew he was having these affairs and seeing all these women. Why was she in such a denial? Was it a need, or was it just, hey, I'm gonna power through this and whatever happens, happen, and now I have the baby? Amy, what are your thoughts?
So I can just really relate this to the COVID piece, the equality that people are going for, the politics that people are going for. So I'm a very good example of someone that says, it's not that I am in denial about it. I really choose and pick what I want to spend my time with. So when they tell me, I'm not able to go to this place, or, I'm not able to go into work, then the reality is I just can't go into work. I just don't spend much time talking about it and fussing about it. It is what it is, and I can't go to work. If they say, this is what's happening in politics, I can choose to really get on that bandwagon and stir up the drama and stress in my own life. So I don't choose to say it's not happening. I just like to think, is this the hill that I want to die on? And in most cases, it's not. The bigger picture is really something else. So it's not that I'm putting it off, or I'm not pushing it on others. I don't put out on social media about things. So I'd really just say to myself, I'm not in denial about it. It's happening, but I really choose to pick what I want to put my energy and effort to. Because there's so many things you can put your effort to right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So many causes, and you have to be very careful about that.
Yeah, so that's really good. And it's really important that we learn that we don't have to be on every bandwagon. And we are. Normally, you see people having this conversation on Facebook, they'll address this, they'll address all these 10 different topics, when in reality, what's happening in your own world that you know that you really need to deal with. And that's where Esther found herself in our story. She found herself, I can't worry about all the 15 other women who are here in the harem with me, hundreds actually. But what I really need to do is focus in on what is it that I bring to the table? What is it that I have to contribute that's really going to bring about a change? And that's where all of us are really good at tonight. We all have a different perspective. We all have a different journey that we've been on, but we bring all that together and we can help people that way. So let's talk a little bit about tonight, Kimmy, when we are going through different changes in our lives, when you just said you have to decide, what you're going to get involved in. Tell me how we look for opportunities when we're facing change.
You can look for, I believe that you can look for opportunities in so many different things, but what you have to look for is positive opportunities for change. If you look for anything negative, I guarantee you'll find it, and it'll be really difficult to find things that are actually positive, even when you are looking for them, but you will find positive in it. So it's like finding the silver lining in things. For example, yesterday, my husband went to go wash his brand new car, and he spent all this time on it. And then he got home, and the little one had went inside of it and put all his little handprints all over the car. And his thing was like, why would he do that? I said, well, the silver lining is he won't be little forever. And there will be a day where he won't even want to come home for Christmas because he's with his wife. So if you can adapt to the silver lining, is that the opportunity for that is to say, and using that as perspective, is that there's going to be a change at some point in your life, but where you can find the opportunity to find the positiveness in it is what you want to do. Because if you're looking for the negative, you can get that too.
Tonight, I think we can all hear, so we can keep talking. There we go. We're going to keep moving and keep talking the best that we can. I'm frozen, but Kimmy, and opportunities, for instance, when your skill levels aren't up to par as much as they should be, what are some things that you can do when you're going through change? For instance, as a manager, and you're talking to an employee and you're trying to tell them that they could do better, but they can't see that they need to make the change. How do you encourage them to find ways to be better during their change?
Mm-hmm. So as I'm working with my, all right. So as I'm working with my staff, and as I'm working even with my clients, when we're talking about change, what I'm looking for is for them to, what we call, one part of coaching is systematically breaking down your structure of knowing, which means you're willing to just tear down the things that you thought you knew, the things that you were born into, the ways that you were raised, and say, are you willing to look at it a different way? So I always start a lot of my conversations with people and say, are you willing to consider that there is a different way of doing this? And if you're willing to consider there's a different way of doing this, then that would be the change. The change is going from what you knew, your structure of knowing, breaking that down, and from that, creating a whole new mindset, a whole new structure. It's not done overnight. It's done in a process, and it's really helpful and done when you have a certified coach to work with and do that.
Right. And that's really good that you just brought.
All right. So she's definitely having some issues with her internet here. So any of you ladies want to chime in on that when you're looking for opportunity for change and looking for different ways of doing things?
Yeah, I'll chime in. So I think as managers, or anytime we're a leader, you have to be a change agent, right? So
Yeah.
you're really encouraging people to buy into whatever that may be. And I think the word is buy-in. How is this going to benefit? Sometimes we really need to present that to people. What's the benefits? What are you going to gain out of this? I like how you said the opportunities in it, because we must understand that change allows us to become the person we want to be. Or if it's in, that's personal change. But when it comes down to the job that's a little bit different because change is going to happen no matter what. The one thing that we can agree on is that change will happen. Will you be a part of it? Will you jump on board, or will you be left behind? That's really it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. All right, Dr. James, are you back in with us now?
I think I'm in the conversation. I'm not quite sure, but I'm out. Go ahead.
All right, so we'll follow along as best as we can. I'm going to go ahead and take us off this view here. So when we what I really like what you said, Crystal, is getting people to get their buy-in. And I think that's in a lot of things in life, even like in a personal relationship, you want people to get, you want them to get buy-in on different things so that they can feel like the change is, that they're part of the change. Like you're not just changing it, but that they had a direct influence on the change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Yvette, so what do you want to say about that? So, or can you tell me about a time when you tried to get someone to buy in on an idea of change, or vice versa, and if they had a positive influence on you being able to change that situation?
Well, I was going to say, after Crystal spoke, that, in ministry, or Kimmy, you're a manager at work, and I kind of, help manage the office. But even in ministry, when we manage our lives well, then we can lead well. And I think that's important, that we remember that people are watching us, people that look up to us, people that we are in charge of, or people that that are in our care. They watch the way we manage these changes, or these situations, and so it's important that I am an example first, so that when I am in a situation to where I need to lead you, then you can trust me. And I think that's all part of the buy-in that Crystal was talking about too. You got to be able to trust me, but you got to see that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing in order to lead you. I said this in another in another show, but one of the old mothers, we were at a couples ministry event, and one of the mothers said, you can't follow a fool. And so it's important that we not be foolish, and especially when we're in leadership, or when, we're in ministry, because people are watching us, and you want them to emulate good things that, that we do. We don't want to lead anybody into stress or distress and strife. We want to be good leaders.
Right.
And, one of the things I was thinking about, Kimmy, when Yvette was talking about just being that good leader and change, we have to admit it is not going to be easy to get everybody to change. There is such a variety of personalities and things that folks have experienced, and change itself is unsettling. You may have that one person who says, boom, I've been doing this for 20 years. It works for me. This is what I like. I don't want to change in it. Right. And then you may have the other one. They're like, okay, we'll change. But the one who has been doing it for 20 years, we do need to sit down and come to a understanding of why we need to change. Right. Because if you were a program, let's talk about a computer program, and you were created 20 years ago, you're not even functional for what we need to exist in today. Right. You are so obsolete. Your program is not being used at all. Right? We have to get upgrades. We have to change in order for us to adapt to the environment that's around us. And as a leader, a good leader, like Yvette says, creating that example, taking the time to get their buy-in. There's no more you doing it because I say do it. It doesn't even work that way. It doesn't even work that way with kids anymore. You can't even say that you do it because I said do it. Right? They're like, what? Yeah. So, we really have to talk this through in order to get people on the bandwagon, to move them forward, not being a good leader, but also for the overall good of themselves. And if you're at a company, an organization, or the church, the body of Christ.
Okay. So let's, I really value that. And what I like most that you said is, people need to lead. And I think both of you said this, was you have to lead by example. So whatever it is, whether you're in your home and you're telling your kids, I always tell people, it's not that do as I say, do as I say, but not as I
As I say,
do.
not as I do.
Right? That's really hard to fall behind when you're asking your kids to do something, or when you're leading someone and you haven't done it yourself as a manager, but you're telling them to do it, but you're not even willing to do it yourself. And
Right.
so that's where the important part of change comes in. So what makes in getting people to change, or in getting people to buy in, um, let's look at what does it look like for positive change in our homes, as Christian women. What do we want? How do we create positive if we want to see positive change? And what I mean by that is, maybe you have an unsaved husband, you have an abusive husband, you have a partner who leaves you with the kids all the time, you have a partner who is not parenting with you. What does that change look like if you want to stay with them? Because let's say you want to stay with them, but you want there to be a change. What does that look like?
You going in a whole different kind
I
of
know.
change.
I really am. I really am. Right?
Well, I want to go there too. I'm not bad. That's good. That's good.
Let's go.
Yes.
But if we're really talking about helping women, and we have like a crowd of like 18 to like 40-year-olds, and these women who are struggling with COVID, and they're struggling with being at home with an abusive partner, right? We're always so worried about like, oh, the kids are at home with them, but what about the alcoholic that was at home with them now because they lost their job, so they're at home with them. We looked at the statistics, Crystal, and we didn't even talk about this. I'm going on a whole nother thing, but the statistics of abuse went way out the roof, right? And people in the ER that were dealing with abuse because now they're home with someone. So what does that look like when we talk about a change in a woman's life? What can she do?
Oh,
Well, can I just step in really quick?
Yeah.
We have been talking a lot about the COVID, and we need to start with offering grace.
yes.
We have got to offer grace. Things that normally get on our nerves, they're heightened. I work in a school office, and there's parents that call, they're upset, they're on a 10, I'm on a 20. No, you don't know. You have to have empathy. You don't know where a person, like Kimmy said, the abuse rates are going up. You don't know what a person went through before they got on the telephone with you. You don't know what it took for that kid to get to the school to pick up their lunches or their books. You don't know what it took to get there. So when they get there and a lot of their gravy is all over your plate, we need to, as Christian women, we need to offer grace and mercy, and we need to be sweet in this time. It's important, especially in this time with the racial issues and the COVID. We have to be patient, and we have to offer that grace and that mercy to one another, because it's so easy to just get nasty and go toe to toe with someone who was nasty to you. But if you put forth an effort and try to just offer the grace and the mercy, it'll be much better. I mean, as an example, I had a parent that called, and she was very upset about this distance learning thing. And when she got off the phone, she called me the B word. And I had to swallow real hard because I was being extremely nice. I had just come from being off of vacation, and I was really trying to help her, and she just called me the B word and hung up. And so everyone in the office kind of knew, because they were listening to my reactions and all that. And so one of my coworkers, she said, well, why? What are you going to do? And I said, oh, I'm not going to do anything. I said, because she's going to have to call back. She's going to need something today, and she's going to have to call me back. And she did within 5 minutes. Is this Miss Yvette? Yes, honey, this is Miss Yvette. What can I do for you? Well, I need my child's birth certificate and shot. Well, let me try to make a copy for you. Let me see if I can find it. That thing could have went left. I could have said, you know what? You got off the phone, and I could have rolled, you know how we do, and I could have got her tone. But after I got off the phone with her, I know she felt good, because I didn't make her feel bad and embarrassed because she called me the B word. I didn't even bring it up. It was as if she hadn't even said it. And I could tell that the whole atmosphere in her situation had changed.
Hmm.
Well, what you said, I like how frustration breeds frustration, right? Because if a person is frustrated, and then they're going to be frustrated. So, Kimmy, I go back to a couple things about you, what you said earlier in your question. Yes, during this season, we have seen an increase of divorce and separation. We have seen an increase of domestic violence. People being in a room where frustration is breeding frustration. Your first mind want to think of that line from Color Purple. You better bash Mr. Head in and think of heaven later, right? What you want to say, right? But that's not it, right? So the frustration that's coming in, the frustration that's coming from the other partner, that we have to find a way to coexist in what that looks like. I am never saying to any woman, sit there and let somebody beat you, let somebody abuse you. You have to get out and get help and get into a safe space. We say that now. If you're in an abusive relationship, somebody's putting their hands on you, you are not designed for that. That is not your purpose. You have to get up, you have to get help. And then I know we talked about this before in a previous podcast. People don't leave because they don't have a plan. Like someone said, you don't have a plan. Where are you going to go? What you're going to do? You have all of these children, right? So they just stay in that space of frustration breeding frustration. And that's why I like this platform where people can talk. We have provided numbers before. If there's domestic violence, you can reach out and talk to somebody or weave. If there's something going on, tell somebody. No one needs to be beat up in the midst of this. There is a lot going on with this shelter in place. Shelter in place is really testing our resilience.
So because it's testing us and because we are in this place, how do we then become stronger, Crystal? How do we mentally become stronger in 2020? Because I'm about ready to call it quit and say 2020 has won, but I don't want to do that. So how do I become stronger?
Yes. So my son, he had given me this meme once, and he said, "Mom, is it still possible for you to slap me into next year?" Right? Right. We would all like to just transport ourselves into 2021. But in order to be mentally strong in the midst of this, for whatever situation we're going through, we're talking about building our own resilience. It's just like a regular muscle. It's just a regular muscle. Just like you can first lift 5 pounds, then you go to 10, then you go to 15, you build up your muscles. You have to build up muscle memory. You have to build that muscle memory up. How do you build muscle memory up? You got to take away the negative self-talk, build yourself up mentally. You have to change your perspective. You have to say, okay, how am I looking at this? And I think, Kimmy, you talked to and alluded to that earlier. The way you said, oh, I'm home with the kids. Oh, I get to be home with the kids. Changing that perspective also builds you up mentally so that you can be strong. And then you have to be mindful of what's going on in the moment. And then make yourself happy. Be happy. Practice being happy, not miserable, waking up. And I think that's the things that make you mentally strong. I read an article once and it said, and I was like, is that true? It even has statistics. It said a person who makes their bed is a more successful and productive person than the person who does not.
Yeah.
So if you wake up in the morning and you make your bed, you're task oriented, you complete things, you have goals, you get started. Those who leave the beds crumpled, waiting, I'm not sure how to describe that. You're just leaving the mess the same place it was and you'll go crawl right back in it, right? But It was saying that person that takes the time to do it, that's how you mentally get strong to handle this. And please don't go through it alone. Don't go through any of this alone. Seek professional help, seek your friends, have Zoom parties, have Zoom breaks, whatever you need to do to just, be connected.
That's true. So I'll read to you the statistics, Crystal. It said 71% of bed makers consider themselves happy, while 62% of non-bed makers admit to being unhappy. Some of the most successful CEOs and corporate leaders have said the one thing that they do is make their bed. And you wonder why our military, the one thing that they teach them coming out of their training is to get up and make their bed. Right? How successful your life will be is how best you
Mhm.
prepare and train and get yourself ready for the day. So, Yvette, talking about how we prepare and get ourselves ready, what does it look like when we personally need to take care of ourselves as we are going through change? Maybe as we see a change is going to be coming, or a change has already happened.
Well, before COVID, I was doing very well in that department. My husband got us memberships at the gym, and I was doing Zumba and hip hop dance classes 3, 4 times a week. And I was on the treadmill, and I was doing really good. And I feel so much better when I am taking care of my body, when I'm exercising, I'm eating a balanced diet, I get enough sleep. I love to sleep. So I don't know if I'll ever get enough sleep. But everything changes. I mean, your day goes by faster. You sleep better at night. And if we can go back to the story of Esther, even in the midst of Esther's change, I believe that Esther stayed on her regimen. There's no way Esther could have come off of her regimen just because there was a change. She didn't have time to, I can't cook the good meals. Can't put the perfume on like I used to. Esther had to stay the course, and she had to continue to stay prepared. I mean, it's just like running a physical race. And Mama James, she trains for all of this. And, I can't just take off right now and go run a race. I'm not prepared. You've got to stay prepared because there's always a battle that we have to fight, or that we're in, in the spiritual realm that we have to be prepared for. So, even in the physical, we have to stay prepared, but in the spiritual, we have to stay prepared. We have to stay on our knees. We have to stay prayed up. Have you ever been out of shape and after praising God, you were tired? Well, that's not good. We always have to remember that life matters. Life matters. We matter, and we want to be if we want to be good to anybody, we need to be good to ourselves. I was reading something where it was saying that if I was flying an airplane, Crystal, and the airplane was low on fuel, if I don't land that plane and refuel it, I'm going to crash and burn. And then I'm going to take a whole bunch of folks with me that was on that flight with me. So it's important that we refuel. We take care of our bodies. We take care of our mental. I mean, Krista was talking about our mental state. And in these times, it's not always easy. Like I said, I fell off the wagon. I have a mind to get back on it and do the right thing. But like I think someone said, we need to reach out and ask someone for help. And, Mama James is that person usually, hey, what you doing? What you eating? Find you someone that's going to keep you accountable and keep you on the, just staying on the right path. I think that's important.
I think that's great. I just know for me, in the midst of this shelter in place, I didn't fall off a wagon. The wagon drove over me and it's dragging me. So
And back again.
back again. It's really difficult working from home, being home. Every time you get up, you pass the refrigerator or you pass the nuts and you grab a handful of them and you eat them. And I'm not making any excuses, but being in the house surrounded by food without that regular schedule has been a little bit of a challenge. So I've had to say, I need to reward myself with something else instead of a handful of nuts. And I'm like, I'm eating nuts. They're really good. Yeah, nuts are packing on the pounds. So that doesn't work. So I agree with you wholeheartedly that in the midst of it, we have to. I just know sometimes when people are going through change and stress, because we're talking about change and stress, some people stress eat, right? And they just start eating and they just start snacking. And those are the things that we really have to say, okay, let me be mindful of this. I'm not even hungry. I just ate a full meal and now all of a sudden I need to have a bowl of ice cream. Is that necessary? Or it's 11 o'clock and then I'm going down the stairs for whatever that means. And I think it's just really trying to be mindful. And I just interjected in that because I hadn't been. And now that I've been starting, getting myself up, I'm like, okay, let me just start. I started by putting it in MyFitnessPal. And when I saw one day, it was already at 2,100 calories and I still was getting ready to put dinner in there. I was like, I guess I'm going to have water. I had to look at it. Be mindful.
Amen.
That's so true. When you're talking about the nuts, I was like, well, does walnuts and brownies count? Like all of it. It's got to be healthy, right? Because we're putting nuts on brownies. It's got to be healthy. But I tell you, Crystal, I'm right there with you because those were and it didn't happen overnight. It was like, oh, we're going to be home a week or two, right? I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be home. This is going to be great. And then a month went by and then 2 months. And I was just like, oh man. And then I just sat in a meeting on Thursday and the director messed around and said spring. And I said, oh Lord, spring. Oh my goodness. So we are truly looking at, and some people when I talk to, they're talking about 2022, that they're looking at going back into the workforce. And to be honest with you, when we talk about change, you all, and those that are essential workers, but you can work from home, at a higher level of management, and Crystal can contest to this, and Yvette, as you've probably heard, is we are finding that the production rate for these staff have really went through the roof. You've taken away their commute, you've taken away their travel, you've taken away so much that now they can really focus on work. They have the dedicated time for some of them. So we're looking at the workforce saying, what does it look like for you guys to telework? Now, that is a mandatory change in your life. Whereas before, it was almost kind of optional. You can come in or not come in. Now it's like you have to stay at home. And so if you are a person that doesn't do well with staying at home and there's no option of coming back, but you need a job, you're going to have some change. So one of the things that I wanted to put in with that is when we talk about change is not overnight. It's little things at a time. It's little habits that we create. And when we talk about how we eat an elephant, how do we eat an elephant, ladies?
One chunk at a time.
One bite at a time, right? It's just one day one second. All right. So it's just one day at a time that we can take a change by change. And what that might look like is you don't have to go out and run a marathon, but going out for a 2-minute walk. The hardest part of some changes is they say you have to do things, I think it says almost like 18 or 19 times before they become a habit consecutively. So when we talk about let's look at some real practical changes in life. If we're talking about how do I start working out, right? Because that's really what we all struggle with. It's what I struggle with. Don't know about the rest of you. Let me put this on solo view. Okay. This is what I struggle with. So what I'm learning is that if I need to work out, okay, pulling the treadmill out might be Monday. Okay. Tuesday might look like putting the shoes next to the bed. And Wednesday would look like putting on the clothes. Thursday could look like I'm going to actually go outside in the garage. Friday is like, I'm going to actually get on the treadmill for a minute. It's better than zero time. It's better than no effort and no change towards those areas. So what's really important as I am coaching with clients, I'm reminding them 5 minutes is better than no minutes. 10 minutes is better than 5 minutes, but give yourself permission to say, I'm going to make this little incremental change in my life so that I can see a difference. And I like what Karen Jones says, if I can just show up and be present, then I can be better prepared for what is about to come. So ladies, I'm going to change this up a little bit because I want to know, as we're closing up, is what are some things that might be changed? What are some changes that people might face in their life? We've talked about workout, we talked about COVID, but there's a train coming. What might that train look like for some of us?
Well, there's good and bad change, right?
Yeah.
I think change is a lot easier. You can accept it in certain areas. So I'll talk about myself. When it comes down to change at work, no problem. I'm a change agent. Let's change. We need to do something. Let's implement it. But when it comes down to change personally, I'm not so much the same. I've had the same cell phone number for 24 years. I like stability. I like things to be consistent and stable in my own home. That's important for me. But when change starts coming, and it will come, it's going to happen, right? Some change is going to take place. Like it says, relationships. I am in that area. I have the same BFF for the same 40 years. I have the same people that are in my life that are very important to me. But when relationships shake up and it change, oh, it's a little bit harder, right? And then when things change in my home, a little bit harder. So people are going to face changes. And I do have to say this one thing. And, I just got married, in February. I went through that major change. And I want to say I was not a bridezilla.
We're not.
See? I think it's because we get to release. I had to just release the control, release it. What it's going to be. Let people around you take care of you. Set your best plans and just move forward, because we're going to face the change.
I like that.
Yeah,
And I can
I do
contest
too.
100%. I was Crystal's wedding planner and coordinator. Yay. And we had a great
Yay!
time. But I tell you, some of y'all come to a wedding and you don't take just one skewer, you take five, and then the bride and groom have to make a change to their plans. And I tell you, she took it like a champ. So she's like, it is what it is, right? Like, I can't change it. We're here now. Some people took more than what they should have. It is what it is, but I'm not going to let it ruin my night. I'm not going to, some brides and some people can get way out of proportion about things. It's not the hill she was willing to die on. It's not worth it. She was ready to get out there and go to her honeymoon. Who cares if you have 5 skewers or not? She's about to leave for her honeymoon for 2 weeks. So it wasn't the change that she was looking for. Go ahead, Yvette.
I was going to say, this may sound like I have a big change. My son is expecting my first grandchild, and I can't go to the hospital. That's a change for me. I told them I was going to sit in the parking lot until that baby was delivered, because I want to see my son's reaction. And that really bothers me. But one of the biggest changes and I know this sounds petty, but one of the biggest changes to me, and you ladies tell me if I'm being superficial or vain, is that mask. Now, I done bought so many masks, and because I'm a diva. I got bling masks, purple masks, burgundy masks, Gucci masks. I have all these masks, and they just don't do me justice. They don't work with my earrings. They don't work with my glasses. They fog up. But they just don't work. And, I smile at everyone. I speak to everyone when I pass by. I was just a part of my hospitality background. And I'm smiling, and I'm wondering why this person ain't smiling back at me. Well, I can't even see them smiling back at me because they have the mask on.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Crystal get to this, because I feel the same way with Yvette. I'm like, I honestly, I don't like the mask. I don't like it constricting. I don't like not being able to show my teeth and smile at people and have conversations. So I really do struggle with this, Yvette, going to church, going places. And then one day I heard my director say, you wear the mask for me and I wear my mask for you. And I said, out of respect, I can do that. So Crystal, you're in the medical field. Tell us what that looks like for the medical staff and protection of wearing a mask.
Yeah, so Sister Yvette, I'm sorry, but the masks are really not optional. And then I'm glad that you blinked yours out though. So that's really nice. That shows your personality. But as Kimmy stated, we wear a mask not just for ourselves, but we wear masks to protect others. Right? There are others that we may come in contact with that may be immunocompromised or whatever that may be, and we have to protect one another. That is the purpose of the mask. And I know people don't believe this, but when you're just talking to someone, just regular talk, I'm going to use the word spittle. Regular talk, you spray people, and it comes out. And it's not even when you're saying It just comes just with regular speech. So we really need to wear the mask to protect others that are around us. And I will say to you, Sister Yvette, you can smile. We have to learn how to communicate a little bit different. I think it was Tyra Banks who said, smile with your eyes, smile with your eyes. So they may not be able to see your mouth, but you can lift up your eyes and smile with your eyes. You can wave. You can use other gestures. We have to just do things a little bit different. And just like you did, the tilting of the head and the raising the eyebrows and this, they know that you're happy to see them. We're just going to have to learn to communicate differently. And I want to go back to a real quick, a little thing that you said here, because this is important. Right now, most hospitals are only allowing one person in the room. And especially when you're having a baby, it's usually only the father. And this is a very miraculous moment that nobody really wants to miss. So this is, I'm sorry.
You're okay.
One of the things that we really want to do, we want to utilize technology in those times. Some hospitals are providing iPads for the patients, and they have the tripods that they can stand on and put them in the room. So you might not be physically present, but you can be there virtually. And you can set up a Zoom with those very close people that all need to be on, to just experience that moment. And then I will say one last thing about hospitals. We have to use technology, you all, please. Phones. When people are in the hospital right now with the limited visitations, people are feeling isolated and alone. That is a huge change, because when someone goes to the hospital, everybody comes visit. The pastor visits, everybody visits, the neighbors visit, because people are lonely. You're just sitting in there watching time pass. Use technology. FaceTime them if you have an iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone and you have an Android, get Google Duo so that they can see your face, so that you can communicate with them, because they don't have anything in there but just watching the sands of the time and then watching TV. You can only watch so much TV when you're in the hospital.
Yeah, that is so true. That is a good point, Crystal. So thank you for those medical tips and the reality of what's happening. And Yvette, our heart does go out to you, because it is such a moment that you want everybody there, or you want all the grandparents there and all the parents. But the one thing that you could tell your grandchild, and you could make up a whole little things about it, and you could say you were born during COVID, right? How many people are going to be able to say that they were born during COVID-19? Right. It's not the best of things, but it's one thing. It's that silver lining that we can find in a time of change. So as we close out, ladies, what would be your last and final tidbit that you would want to give to women as we talk about change and embracing it and being prepared for what's to come? Crystal, I'm going to go ahead and start with you tonight.
I would say the one thing I want you all to remember: change is coming. Good change and bad change. The one thing that we can be sure of is that change will come. Professionally, personally, relationships, just events and change in life. One thing you should do: build yourself up to be strong and resilient, and use your own muscle memory, use some of the tools that we've talked about tonight, and then most of all, use your testimony. I think of the most person, we always say, I know we're talking about Esther, my favorite character will and forever be David. And one thing about David, I feel like in change, he was definitely a change agent. And one of the things he drew on was his testimony and his experience. So the scripture that I liked most is when David said, and he looked at King Saul and he was like, look, I killed a lion, I killed a bear when they was trying to come after me and make me the lamb chops, but I killed them. The Lord helped me. And then he got ready to face each thing. He was then ready when he got ready to face Goliath, yet another change. But he stood firm and he said, I didn't kill the lion, I didn't kill the bear. I am going to slay this Goliath that's in front of me. There is no dragon that you cannot slay. There is nothing we cannot get through. COVID-19, all of these things, the injustice and inequality that we are facing, standing together as human kindness, standing together as human beings in the midst of such racial tension, and standing in the middle of this election, who knows what's going to happen? We can get through this. And we know why. We made it through 1980. We made it through 1990. We made it through killing the lion. We made it through killing the bear. Now we can make it through killing Goliath.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. I love that. All right, Yvette, what do you have for us? What's your last little tidbit on how we're going to embrace change?
I would just like to leave with you all out there to let's stop overthinking what we cannot control. Overthinking can lead to a lot of things: depression and anxiety, insomnia. So let's stop overthinking these things. One of my favorite scriptures comes from Matthew 6:34, and it says, "Take therefore no thought for tomorrow, for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself." So, ladies, I always like to say that we all say that we believe in God, but in a time and day like we are in right now, we have to start believing God, not just believing in God. We have to believe God. We have to believe his word, believe what he said. He said he would never leave us nor forsake us. So if we as people of faith believe God, then we believe that he is in total control and no weapon formed against us shall prosper.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Crystal, for really putting a good end to that on about change. One of the things that you said, Yvette, that rang a bell to me is when people say, stop borrowing tomorrow's troubles, right? Today. What will happen tomorrow will happen. What is for today will happen today. And I want to let you know that nothing happens by mistake. Everything has a purpose and a reason. Esther was there to serve her purpose. She was there to save the nation. And for such a time as this, she was able to do that. So change looks like this: personal growth, new opportunities, progress, flexibility. I heard adaptability, so many different things, and doing it in little small amounts that will make a snowball effect that will have a huge impact. We look at people that started the year out strong and they're ending it not so strong, and those that were not so strong and they're actually ending it strong as a result of COVID. And that's where you want to be. You want to be in the category where you are ending strong and you are embracing the change. We don't have to wait for the New Year's to create a New Year's resolution. We can do that right now. At the end of this summer season, you can do it today. You can create and have that change. So be a part of the change and be a change agent for someone else. Give them grace where they need it at. And that's what we want to encourage you today. We missed Dr. James on this session for today, Embracing Change. And she's here, she's waving. Her audio is in and out, but she's adapting to the change. And one of the things that she's adapting to, I'm adapting to, and Yvette, as we're in the workforce of working with those in distance learning, is that uh, there is a big change of distance learning and what this looks like for us, for our children, the ups and the downs. And next week, when you join us, for all of those that are affected by COVID-19 and the distance learning struggle that we are having, we want you to join us. Tell your friends, tell your family, chime in with us next Monday at 7 p.m. to talk about the distance learning and how you can overcome some of these things. We're going to have some great guests that are some specialty admin people, some counselors, some principals, I believe, some teachers that we're inviting from all over the United States to really chime in on what distance learning looks like for each and every one of us. So thank you all for being here with us on tonight. Thank you for being willing to talk about change, embracing change, bringing your own personal perspectives into it while keeping a godly mind. And we want to encourage all of you to come back and see us on next week. Before we close that, we'll give you a little bit of a closure about some tips that we have for coming up on next week. Thank you for joining us here at the King's Table.
Well, we've had another wonderful conversation at the King's Table, and we say thank you for sharing your night with us. Join us on next Monday night at 7 p.m. We have a great topic: distance learning, a new way to educate our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, but we need help. We have 3 amazing educators and professional administrators who are going to share tools, tips, and resources to help us. Join me every Monday morning at 7 a.m. for Monday Morning Jump Start. We are going back to basics. You can also pick up my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and many other locations. Remember, it's the King's Table, parentheses, KJ. You can also pick up my book on Amazon, or you can reach out to me at finallyexcusefree@gmail, and I'll get it in the mail to you. This is brought to you by Esther Nation Ministries. We say thank you for joining us at the King's Table. God bless you. You were born for just a time as this.